You're listening to Inside Content, the TV industry podcast. This show is brought to you by 3Vision, a global TV industry consultancy specialising in content acquisition, strategy, research and business development. Each episode, we give you VIP access to the views and experiences of senior TV executives and discuss the latest TV industry trends and insights.
Hi, I'm Jack Thomas, Director of 3Vision. On this special episode of Inside Content, I'm joined by Anthony Zuiker, creator of CSI. We delve into the continued success of the franchise, including its global acquisitions, and explore the rise of true crime limited series, as well as the current commissioning trends in crime drama. Hi Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I'm here in lovely Seattle.
Ah, good. And I'm here in equally lovely Vancouver. Thanks for joining me on Inside Content. It's great to have you here, especially as we sort of start to see and have continued to see a big change and in terms of the type of content people have been producing and commissioning. As your career has spanned over a sort of great age as far as TV content's concerned. We've gone through several status quos as we sort of now get into a bigger disruptive force now, as far as you've gone through and like seen CSI flourish and the rise of streamers and everything else as broadcasters face some of its challenges over the years. CSI has always been kind of an enduring force in that space. So I guess my first question to you is, how do you explain that kind of continued success that a show like CSI has had over the years, despite these kind of, I think when you look at sort of common sense trends around things, it seems like in many ways crime drama is going in other directions. We're seeing, I was pulling numbers earlier, the last season saw a quarter of new crime dramas coming out of the US being limited series, almost polar opposite of a 15 series run. What makes you think that why CSI has sort of managed to endure as a franchise despite these kind of changes in commissioning trends?
Well, I think to answer that, for these times, we have to take a look at those times, right? So CSI was created in August of 1999. It debuted October 6th of 2000 on CBS on a Friday in a crazy way at 9 o'clock. And then once it sort of surpassed the Fugitive in terms of ratings, it moved to Thursdays at 9 and was there for 12 straight years. Now, Thursday at 9 is a very, very profitable time slot for the broadcast because it's the last chance for advertisers to get a hold of, the consumer. And that's a very important slot. Don't forget, there was no streaming back then. So the main way to consume a big television show was to watch it either live on broadcast or you could tape it, TiVo it as you wish. And a lot of people consumed it there. So the technology of the broadcast and the simplicity of recording was just perfect for the CSI format, which runs 42 minutes and 12 seconds. As time goes on, streaming kind of came in, surpassed cable, and changed the consumptive habits of how people consume television. That said, we were still the meat and potatoes of the world in terms of the most successful franchise with CSI Vegas, CSI Miami, CSI New York, CSI Cyber, and CSI Vegas once again. And as the streaming platform changed and shifted, the programmers and developers of the new crime shows of today don't quite know how far they can go. So it's a lot of sampling, as they say. It's a lot of limited series, 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 10 episodes. It'd be hard-pressed to find a long-running show like CSI that can go 15 years on a streaming service. It's just not quite what it is. So the good news about CSI is that it can live on broadcast and does very well globally. It can live on streaming and cable quite successfully. We're not really interested in getting into a back and forth with other limited series that air. That's really up to them to do that. But we also believe that our format is timeless enough to go longer programming, shorter programming, movies, short form. We haven't been approached yet, but for now we're sticking with the 1 hour on broadcast into other platforms.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about it, sort of international reach. I was looking at we track a lot of data where shows go around the world, and so looking at CSI Vegas, you kind of see a huge different kind of proportion of different types of services acquiring it depending on the country. A lot of pay TV, sort of cable equivalent broadcasters around the world taking it, whereas traditionally, obviously, it'd be something very well sought after by free TV. We're seeing that a little bit. Places like Australia, obviously Canada, where I am, has a simulcast on global. Italy as well, free TV picking up, but also lots of SVOD taking it now in lots of different places, whether that's local SVOD services acquiring it and stacking it, or waiting a little bit longer and putting it up for box set. And obviously, with the whole Paramount connection, that obviously leaves a sort of good opportunity for Paramount Plus in a few markets to potentially take it as its sort of first window as well. Have you spoken or like seen from like the audience perspective? Is there a new preferred way of viewing CSI? Is it something that people love to binge? Do you know? Is it something that still kind of has that water cooler moment quality that benefits from a weekly release?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I can answer it a couple different ways. Number one, I will say that the quality of programming to be consumed for CSI is a much more exciting and delicious experience on Paramount Plus than broadcast. On Paramount Plus, you don't have the banners popping up to advertise other shows during our actors trying to look for evidence and talk about the crime. You don't have the disturbances of sort of low quality audio, and then suddenly a commercial comes up and it's blistering in your ears. Those things aren't great for the experience. And I've been pretty vocal about that's just not the best thing for our viewers. In terms of Paramount Plus and binging, there's good and bad to that. The consumer likes to binge, and I get things that are serialized, and they binge it and they love it. But the problem with the binging model, in my opinion, is the fact that once you sit and binge over the course of a day or a week or a month, the lag time to go ahead and re-up and give you more episodes for a secondary season, third season, takes so long. You're just asking the consumer to move on to other stuff and fall out of love with the series. And I think that's going to be the danger. The great thing about at least the CSI model is you can watch it on a Thursday, and I recently moved to Sunday, once a week for most of the year, and then really enjoy repeats over the summer. Uh, I love White Lotus season two. I just came back from Sicily and stayed in that hotel, and it was wonderful. Um, but I'll be waiting a long time until I see season three. And at that point, I might have moved on to something else. So I think the streamers are putting a lot of singles and doubles in baseball speak into the world to be able to kind of attract you to pay $10 a month. It's fun to binge, but it's not fun to wait. Think of consuming broadcasts
Mm.
like food in a restaurant. Lovely to go there and eat. Appetizer's fantastic, but when the entree takes an hour and a half to get to your table, you're not happy. So I'd rather have a consistent meal over the course of time to have a great experience than to have the privilege to binge and then have to wait and fall out of love with stuff. I think that's a very dangerous game. That's probably why we're on strike.
Mm. I mean, there's obviously interesting seeing kind of shorter runs of shows, whether that's both on the season level, like you say, singles or doubles, but also just on a per season basis. A lot of the data we look at, even for sort of conventional or traditional, rather, procedural dramas, the episode count per season sort of on the average is slipping ever so slightly over the years. And obviously, as we see more things like limited series pushing for 6 or 10 episodes, as opposed to kind of a traditional 22 episode run, that drastically reduces that ability to spread it out, even if you were to release it weekly.
And
CSI
I,
is
and, I,
something that,
and
like you say, sorry, go
yeah,
on.
Jack, I
Mm.
don't think it pencils is the issue. It doesn't pencil. In a couple reasons, it goes sideways in a couple reasons, in my opinion. Number one, there's so many singles and doubles out there. Who can possibly keep track of everything? I was literally driving to LAX yesterday morning, and I saw uh, the the wife of Nick Jonas. I think Chopra Jonas is in this new thing called Citadel.
Hmm.
I've never heard of it at all. It's been out for a month, and she's huge. She's a big deal. So the thing is, as you put all these things out there in a million different streaming platforms, nobody could possibly track it all. So it's very difficult to consume it. In terms of the CSI order, we live in that 22, 24 episode range. I believe our season 3 pickup is 15. That's probably because of the strike. But being able to do 22, 24 to keep our sets standing and not strike the sets in terms of our budget, the consistency of our actors and keeping them employed along with the crew, and being able to provide year-round content without a long wait or lag, I think is important to the audience. I mean, could you imagine Sopranos coming on and doing 6 episodes and then disappearing
Mm.
forever, or waiting a year and a half to come back? I mean, you saw what happened when they took that long year and a half hiatus and came back from HBO. People didn't come back. It was tough. So I'm of the Sopranos ilk, the CSI ilk. Things that last longer, that make me feel like my family's not going to leave me and entertain me, once a week for an hour. I think that's important for the self consciousness of the viewer.
And I think despite everything we're seeing with limited series, obviously there is seemingly a sort of growing sort of appreciation and demand for procedural, whether that's taking the wealth of library of what's already out there for CSI. That's still a well sought after thing for a lot of services internationally. It's still something that performs very well on a lot of streamers. Is some of their best performing content is that what's otherwise quite old content, but is reliable and there for a lot of people. And I guess the question I have is, we start to see a few newer procedural crime things pop up from other people as well. So, and starting the kind of spin-off train as well. So we've got sort of your 911s and your FBIs and things starting up a little bit more. Do you think there's a sign there? We've seen that a sort of bigger push might come for procedurals, or do you think there's
Well,
a much smaller market than there used to be, and some people are going to have to kind of sink or swim?
it's another dangerous Jack question. So I'll tell you the problem in that. I believe the future of broadcast, the future of television, has to start at the broadcast level, period. And then it can actually limp itself into streaming and have a life there, at a specific dollar point per month. I think that's going to be important. If not, you really run the risk of doing short form stuff in a lot of streaming platforms that you just simply cannot track. And I think financially, it's going to be really, really tough. When the technology dictates the content versus the content first finds a place in the technology consumption, things begin to turn a little bit upside down. And although the habits have shifted in terms of watching stuff on streaming, and we all do it, we've all done it, it just can't be at the expense of the purity of what we do, which is, long form content for the broadest audience possible. I don't see a big future in short form content on the streaming platform without some level of consistency and ignoring the broadcast as a platform to reach our largest audience. It's called broadcast for a reason. And I think the industry is going to have to get back to honoring the importance of television proper as a broadcast versus ignoring that and think that streaming will bail us out, because it certainly won't.
I think it's really interesting, some of the things you've been saying, as far as like there's a lot of things I'm constantly told by people, you should watch this, you should watch this, and there's things they watched weeks ago, months ago, all in one go. There's no conversation to be had about it other than, have you watched it or haven't you? I think come to mind is something like Dharma on Netflix. I have a lot of people telling me to do that, and I remember last time I was in LA, a lot of Emmy pushes from that. But obviously that's the realm of sort of great writing and drama is not something that's monopolized by those types of content. You guys in CSI Vegas, obviously with your episode, The Promise is one that you're quite keen and to sort of have people put their eyes on because of the sort of dramatic content of it there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that episode for me?
Sure. The Promise is episode 17 of season 2 for CSI. It aired on March 30th, 2023. I know that because it's my 10th year anniversary. So that's why I remembered that specific date. I've been working with Karen T. Taylor, who's the leader in facial reconstruction out of Austin, Texas, for about 20 years. There's been a lot of articles in Las Vegas that have been consumed, probably national news. They've been finding bodies in rusted barrels in the bottom of Lake Mead. Now, allegedly, the bodies in those barrels are sort of like mob hits of the 70s, most likely, done by the sort of that era of the movie Casino with the Frank Rosenthal and Tony Spilotro. Um,
Mhm.
I assume that once that goes to the FBI and goes to the channels of DNA, those will probably be victims of the mob. Not really a big deal. What we didn't want to do is do a cliche and do sort of like a mob hit in a barrel, although that's real. What we decided to do is flip it and tell a highly emotional story about a child in the barrel, and then all that comes with that emotionality of finding a child in a barrel over the course of 40 years and trying to bring peace of mind and closure to her mother. Now, her mother is Regina Taylor. She plays Mrs. Williams in the show, and I've been on this Emmy campaign for a while since it aired because I've never quite seen a performance like this on broadcast. It could be one of the best performances ever. And she really came in and did something extraordinary. Now, the Emmy campaign is very tough because you're competing with all the streaming shows and the cable shows as you wish. And rarely does broadcast get a look, but for guest star on CSI Las Vegas, I believe the promise with that role with Regina Taylor deserves an Emmy nomination, most likely a win.
Yeah, I think she did really splendidly on it. When I watched it, it was really good, and it's one of those fascinating things. So you could, there's a cynical part of me that feels like you could take that episode and quite easily turn it into one of these 10 episode limited series and sort of draw it
There you
out a
go
little bit
again.
more.
There you go again.
But obviously so much of you, but also you do start to lose the impact over time if you're asking people to wait that long or asking people to commit to 10 hours, and so the idea that you can have that and then tune in next week for something else is great.
It's. I mean, what people have to understand on this podcast is this:
Mm.
it's very expensive to get a show up and running. Very expensive
Mm.
to hire the actors, to build the sets, to go on location, and then strike and end. And when you start doing that math, it doesn't pencil. Is the problem? It doesn't really turn a tremendous profit. And the other thing, Jack, you mentioned earlier that I forgot that I want to mention is it's very difficult to be successful on broadcast and then be good enough for some of the streamer services. There are some shows on major networks, I will not name them to get myself in trouble, but there are some that do decent on broadcast and they can't sell them in the streaming service. And that's also a problem. So it's not just a broadcast problem being ignored in the streaming service is now the flavor of the month. The key to success is going to be a successful broadcast show that lives on other platforms successfully also. So you're consuming them for free on broadcast and you're willing to pay that $10, $15 a month to consume them on streaming. And that's going to be the only way I believe this industry can sustain.
And do you think some of that hesitance for streamers to acquire things previously on broadcast is that because they've been seen by everyone already on broadcast? Is there a kind of snobbiness at play where they think a network TV show is not the same as a streamer TV show?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so because the consumer has the confidence that it's always there for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to miss the promise on on March 30th, 2023, you know that if you belong to Paramount Plus, you know that all the episodes are there for you for your consumptive behavior, which is fantastic. So the safety net is there. That's not the issue. The issue will be is if you ignore the broadcast and you're strictly going to put all your money behind the streaming service and you're going to do short content that's really expensive with high end actors, how do you possibly sustain the $10 a month without extraordinary scale? Where's your Yellowstone? Where's your 1823? Where are your big hits that cause you to actually plunk down and join the service because you want to watch Yellowstone? And that's going to be the bar to be set really high to be able to keep this business afloat.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen to sort of finally start to see sort of from the tops of a lot of the studios that kind of, and Netflix and the like as well, that pivot from this kind of content arms race where it was pump out as much as we can, as much premium content as we can at all costs, to this bit more signaling towards a kind of pragmatic content approach where, okay, we're going to actually try and push for the right content for our platform, be careful with our investment, make sure we're not overspending on all these premium dramas and things. Obviously, a big part of that would be a sort of digital footprint potentially for broadcast as well.
We have other problems. The problem is that people like myself who want to have creative freedom to push the audience and push the envelope as much as we possibly can to entertain an audience that is very entertained on TikTok and seen everything they can under the sun within 30 minutes. There's a lot of restrictions on broadcast. There's restrictions on language, restrictions on sex, restrictions on violence, restrictions on what you can say. We're in this cancel culture, this woke culture, and I've had many notes come back that I just feel are just really silly for where we are
Hmm.
today in 2023. And what happens is the scripts get watered down to the point where they're very boilerplate, because we can't take those chances. So if, as an artist, I don't love the broadcast creatively, um, but as an artist, I love streaming creatively because you can pretty much do what you want. So you're
Mm.
battling an audience that wants to be entertained and pushed, um, and you're also battling a broadcast that where your hands are tied behind your back to write a script. So it's very challenging right now.
Sounds like almost like some of the challenges that people sort of back in the day trying to make those kind of edgy kids cartoons I grew up with, like Batman and Gargoyles. They obviously always had to fight with people because that's kids content. You need to think, be sensitive and everything. But it's interesting to see that still kind of being applied to content that's
You know,
supposed to
and
be
by the way,
for
only
adults as
if you
well.
can get away with murder, so to speak. And South Park can do it all day long. They can do Comedy
Hmm.
Central. They can do streaming. Family Guy. Like some of those things can go all day long. But I remember getting a note back from CBS that I couldn't say the word chop suey
Oh.
in the terms of like hurry up, like chop suey, let's go, come on.
Oh, I see. Right.
Uh,
Okay.
and that was sort of said to me that might be offensive. And I think when we're at that point where chop suey is offensive, meaning knowing clearly it means let's hurry up to the crime scene.
Mm.
I think things are in a pretty bleak place.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can start to sort of maybe see people move around and allow people to push the bar a bit more. I think there's that expectation seems to be growing among streamer audiences, so you would hope that that might sort of be inherited by broadcast as well at some point if they want to compete on that stage as well. I guess I'm curious now. Obviously, we talked a lot about CSI, this and enduring format that's done so well, but obviously some of the more recent work that you've got sort of upcoming, specifically what you have with the Sinclair Broadcasting Company, is something a lot more potentially disruptive, interesting way of tackling kind of what might sort of that kind of true crime sort of fascination people have had over the years. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, sure. I mean, the Sinclair Broadcast Group is sort of it's kind of the makeup that covers all my blemishes. It sort of forgives a lot of sins for the industry. I am the type of entrepreneur and writer and creator and producer that has multiple things in the fire all the time inside the industry and outside the industry, just because I don't really trust that one specific thing is going to keep me gainfully employed, even though what I do the best right now is obviously CSI. So when I met up with Sinclair Broadcast Group, they were able to tell me that they are in business with 198 stations and they had the capital to let me develop television shows powered by Sinclair, original Anthony Zuiker Productions, and then take them into the marketplace with some level of funding and also full creativity. Now that's something I don't have. I could probably, if I wanted to bark loud enough, I could probably get that kind of deal at Netflix, but I don't necessarily want to write 1,000 episodes every single year at 54 years old. But Sinclair allows me to create game shows and finance them. And we do short form documentary series and finance them. Start up new companies and finance them. And for me, creatively, this is exactly where I want to be at this time of my life. What I don't want to be doing is pre-COVID is driving 2 hours from Malibu to Netflix, pitching them, and then never getting a yes and never getting a no. That's been pretty much on par. I've had that happen with BET. I've had it happen to other Discovery Channel where you sometimes just don't even get a no.
Interesting.
And that's a lot of work before you pitch. It's a lot of going in with expensive decks and sizzle reels, and we just don't have the people in the room anymore that can actually say yes. So you have to, you're pitching people that don't have the power to say yes to go upstairs to pitch you when you're not there, and the hope for a positive result. And it just, for me, I don't bring anything into the industry pitching that's not of top shelf, of high quality. and just the leadership part of where the industry is right now and how things are distilled upstairs to get a yes and how to get things to the altar in 2 years wasn't something I was excited about. So I decided to shift pivot my entire sensibilities for the business and just go around the system and work from the back end to inside versus the upfront pitch scenario. I've retired from that. It doesn't work for me.
Okay, interesting. So what does this mean for this type of content that you're putting out with Sinclair? What does that mean on the kind of international stage? Is that something that people are likely to see around the world, or is it kind of
Possible. Sure. We're doing a six-part documentary series called Timeline, original Anthony Zuiker production about the deconstruction of the shooting in Las Vegas. It happened October 1st, 2017, by the hands of Stephen C. Paddock, where 59 people were killed, including himself. That's a very daring series that will live globally. I'm certain that Idaho Murders is next. DC Snipers 9/11. It's a really, really strong format, and that could see global use for sure in terms of consumption. We have a couple of game shows that I've created that are gone to pilot that I've seen that are wonderfully fantastic that could live in different languages all over the world. And it's exciting. It's exciting to get past that stage where when you sit and think, you don't have to worry about pitching and selling anything. It's really kind of already greenlit at the thought process. It's just a matter of how excellent you want to fix it before you kind of take it out or shoot it. And it's a much different mentality. And as that works in success, I'll be bringing people of the industry over to the Sinclair side, who I know would desperately like to have this kind of arrangement.
Yeah, so do you think there's a bit of a potential trend about to be set here as far as sort
Could be.
of being able to dip into these local news archives and
it could
bring
be.
up out quite easily something? Is that is as far as like doing that work, assembling the footage and everything that they might have on file when it comes to sort of building out these docuseries? Is that something that you and your production team are doing, or have they got a team of sort of archivists that are able to jump into their own archives
No,
and pull
it's
out
us for
everything you need?
yeah, it's us for now. I mean, look, I told the chairman of Sinclair, I said, look, you have more Tiger King footage than anybody ever had, and you never did a documentary. You have more Green River Killer footage, Idaho murder footage than anybody, because you have news affiliates down there shooting this stuff all the time. The problem is once they do their packages for the news, it goes in the cutting room floor and it has no value. So I talked to Sinclair. I said, look, why don't we redo the way we tell stories on the news broadcast? Why don't we archive the stuff we're shooting and repurpose it for original programming so you could own it? So when Timeline goes to series for Vegas or Idaho Murders or DC Sniper or 9/11, arguably you could have 36 different pieces of content that you own that you can control, and you could remonetize those anytime you want to establish a library with valuation. So as the retrans news business goes down over the course of the next 7 years, this media company will have stuff in their vault that has value, because Sinclair, in my opinion, is a news company, but really deep down it's a content company. And that's why they took me on.
That's excellent. Well, and obviously potentially looking forward to if you can, as you say, potentially get some of your friends involved in this type of work as well. There might be a huge potential ceiling for the kind of work that can happen from this. I mean, it's definitely an area that we've continue to see as far as factual content. There's still that renewed interest in true crime. It's not just all being turned into limited drama series. There's still plenty of true crime factual as well.
And by the way, Jack, the thing is, yeah, I mean, look, the world's changed. Remember, in the year 2000, if you bring in an idea for television and you pitch it, and let's say it's in what we call the zip code, meaning it's in the ballpark of what could be good or great. The executives back then would take the idea, listen to it, see the bones in it, and you would have multiple development sessions until you got it to a place that it was great, and then go upstairs and sell the person that could say yes to it and finance it, and have a chance to shoot it and put it on the air. That was the culture in 2000. The culture in 2023 is people who are in the room don't have the power to say yes. They don't have you back for a secondary development session. And unless you're pitch perfect in the moment, you're going to either get a no or get no answer. And I think, leadership wise and culture wise, that's where we're really struggling as an industry. When we are not collaborative with the buyer to work together to make something great for their network and their audience, that becomes a real guessing game for someone like myself. Now, CSI is different. CSI, we know the players, we know the bosses, we know the check writers, we know what they want, we know the audience like the back of our hand. So there's not a lot of that. But even still, we bring a brand new CSI, there's still a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of partnerships, there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of that in the CSI culture. That's why it still works. But if you're an 18-year-old kid, 25-year-old kid, 30-year-old person going in to pitch with a small resume, it's going to be very, very challenging to go to first base. And I think that's the thing we have to take care of, not to take care of Anthony's, who's already established, but to take care of the upcoming Anthony's that need the development support to keep the industry alive. And I don't think leadership-wise that's happening.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, what sort of action do you think is something that could be taken for that, other than the sort of potential
It's just going to have to be
radical shake-up
from the
of
top down.
executives?
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
top down. It's going to have to start empowering your executives to develop. I mean, look, very few people walk in with something that's perfect. If that's the case, everything Francis Ford Coppola shot would be the greatest things of all time, beyond Godfather. Even there's some misses with him too, right? It's hard to get things right. Spielberg, it's hard to get things right. There are very few Top Gun Mavericks out there that are just a fantastically perfect movie. But you have to empower your executives to have to be tastemakers, to see something great that may not quite be there, but get it there. Bring out the best in the talent. Get behind it with passion. Go upstairs and sell it. And I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of it's kind of like a talent show. You kind of like you perform, and either you win or you lose. There's no real gray area of development. I think that's a dangerous game.
It obviously means that we might sort of get a limited talent pool in the times going ahead. Obviously, we see more and more shows with high-profile showrunners attached to them, and that's very exciting. And it seems like a lot of those writers' rooms ends up being sort of full of that showrunner and a lot of their close writers that they trust.
Sure. Oh yeah,
that in itself makes it a bit
sure.
difficult for new people to get in and cut their teeth on some writing.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to kill. That won't keep an industry alive. Having an Aaron Sorkin here, and David Kelly there of this generation, or even a White Lotus, Mike White. It's not going to sustain an industry. Until you start growing potential future showrunners, to start growing, seasoned writers who are younger, and start embracing some of these younger filmmakers to grow into their own. I never wrote television before CSI, but I had two partners in Bruckheimer to come in and teach me the industry, take care of me, not let me go, include me, and now, cut to, we have 841 episodes over the course of 25 years, a quarter century of content in the game, at a $12 billion valuation in 187 territories around the world. And that's the difference between taking care of a no-name tram driver like me from Las Vegas who never wrote TV, and then taking care of him and teaching him the business, and then growing into, a leader of industry. That's the classic difference between taking care of somebody and discarding somebody.
Yeah, no, very, very, very true. I think with that, we're getting close to our time here today. But I would thank you so much for joining me. Before we do go, I just wanted to find out if you've got anything else on the docket that you're working on at the moment that you wanted to let us know about.
Tons and tons and tons. Well, I am working on a brand new streaming channel that I can't go on record beyond that, but it is sort of the future of what Netflix is going to be. I have several board game initiatives that we're working on in the sports world and also the CSI world, which is exciting. I do have, after 8 long, arduous years, we finally got Soul Train the musical off the ground. That will debut September 6th in San Francisco and be, hopefully, fingers crossed, on Broadway by spring of 2024. I've been working on that book in production as an EP for about 8 years. And our dear project that we've been working on since 2018 is Zuiker Press. And my wife and I started a graphic novel company that deals with children's topics like abuse and divorce, cyberbullying, suicide, autism. And we find these young people with great stories, animate their stories, and we buy the books with personal funds and fundraising and give the books to schools for free. We're currently on our 10th book. They're available on Amazon. We've got wonderful children's stories. The kids are so fantastic. They've been through such tough trauma, and to put those books into the world is really, really special. And our youngest, our 10th author, his name's Sunil. He's in a wheelchair. He has DMD, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and I'm getting emails literally as we speak, as I hold my phone up, from different principals that got the books for free, 25 copies in a class set, and just it's a really, really special project. So it's called Zuiker Press. It's on Amazon. And look for these fantastic graphic novels.
Excellent. That sounds like really, really fantastic work that you're doing there, alongside everything else as well. You definitely are not slowing down, are you?
No. It's fun. People are so funny. They're like, "How come you're still working?" And I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't I be?" I know I'm an only child at 54 years old, but I've been doing CSI since 29 years old. But I still enjoy working, being creative, and don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Great. Well, that's good to hear. I guess before I do let you go, I have one final curveball question for you. I'm sure you've been asked this by hundreds of people, but what is your favorite Who song?
Oh, I think "Who Are You?" probably. That was the song that I chose for the network when they wanted they had a song. I think the song called "War Good." What is it good for?
Oh, wow.
I think that was a song they had back in Family Law. So they wanted
Mm-hmm.
a typical like rock song. So I chose "Who Are You?" Who are you meeting the victim? Who are you, the killer? I went to Pete Townsend when he saw the main title sequence. He was in his private jet. He popped in a VHS tape. Yes, I said it, a VHS tape. And then called and said he loved it. And next thing you know, it was the "Who Are You?" Then "Won't Get Fooled Again," and then "Babel O'Reilly," and then
and
I
then
think
back to Who Are You again?
and go back to "Who Are You?" again. So.
Yeah.
So the Who's done very, very well. There was a time where they were charging us about $70,000 a week.
Wow.
So they made out like bandits. Those guys.
Yeah, they've done very well out of this. Why go on tour when you can get CSI? Well, if you ever do CSI Vancouver, you can do Pinball Wizard for that. I think that's a good choice.
Yes, I
would
can
appreciate
see. I can see the Chelsea. I can see the flower show up there being a one big fat crime scene.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it was an absolute pleasure chatting to you today, Anthony. Thanks so much for joining us on Inside Content.
Great. Thanks very much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Inside Content, the TV industry podcast brought to you by 3Vision. With decades of TV industry experience and real-world success, we know the ins and outs of the market like nobody else. To learn more about our TV consultancy services, head to 3vision.tv.